Hola, bon dia. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show from expatsportugal.com. Ask anything about Portugal Wednesday. But funnily enough, my co-host this morning, Michael Heron, who has a monthly residency with us for the Ask Anything About Portugal slot, is in Madrid this morning. I just saw him disappear from the green room. That's a bit scary. He got up early, earlier than he might have done, thinking that there was a time difference. I don't know if there is a time difference or not, but I think he miscalculated it and was ready an hour early for the show. And then my phone was flat trying to communicate with him on WhatsApp. I'm typing into the WhatsApp app on my laptop, and my phone's flat because one of the kids has flattened the battery. You know how these things happen. And so we have had a big miscommunication, and Michael Heron is missing at the moment. Missing in Madrid. As I say that, here he is, missing.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Sorry about that. I managed to play the video at the same time, and the Wi-Fi here was a bit weak. And I apologize for the generic backdrop of my hotel room. I was hoping to show you a beautiful image of Madrid, but it wasn't possible. So you just have to use your imagination.
Well, you could paint a few pictures with words, I'm sure. You're not a first-time visitor to Madrid. You love Spain, don't you? I believe.
Yeah, so I lived in Madrid before moving to Lisbon in 2014. Yeah, it's a great city, and yeah, it's just been really nice to get out and about on a plane. And there was a wonderful event I was at last night celebrating the top 50 women in the legal sector in Spain and Portugal. So it was wonderful to see. Yeah, see so many inspiring women in Spain and Portugal, and it was really funny because there were so many people from Portugal that hadn't seen each other in Lisbon for so long, yet here we all were together in Madrid. So it was lovely. It was really nice.
Doing what humans love doing at the best of times, right?
Yeah. Do you know what? It's so interesting, Carl, because at the beginning of the night, obviously everyone wearing masks, people are a little bit, sort of nervous. And then, there's people I haven't seen for a long time, and because they're wearing masks, it's not always as easy to recognize them straight away. But then as soon as the evening progressed and people got more comfortable, and dare I say, a few drinks flowed, then everyone was just super happy. And the difference between doing, for those of you that work in business and maybe have got a bit of fatigue when it comes to, online events that you've maybe been attending, the difference between doing it in person, you just can't compare it. So yeah, it was wonderful.
Well, it sounds like the pandemic equivalent of the masked ball, the masquerade.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, mate. Yeah, it's true.
You go into a hotel banqueting room, and there are people with big beards and massive hair and masks on, and you think, I think I know those eyes from that law firm.
Yeah.
And obviously that's just the women I'm talking about, and then the guys who've got even bigger beards and hair everywhere. But by the end of the evening, you kind of located everybody, and all was well with the world.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you something that really spun me out, Carl. So when I arrived at the hotel, and it was a beautiful hotel. It was the Four Seasons, so everything was great. But when I arrived at reception, the lady behind reception said, "Let me just check your temperature quickly." And I said, "Okay," expecting her to get out the typical, thermometer that they press against your head. And she just suddenly looked at a screen and said, "Yeah, all good." I was like, "What? Excuse me?" So they have like a thing behind the counter where they can see, like a motion sensor, I guess. So I felt quite invaded, I must admit. It was quite felt quite violated. But it's just a way for them to do it seamlessly. But I thought it was very
well. That's no longer a chat up line, is it?
Could I say, what's your temperature? Yeah, my God, could you imagine?
Yes, my goodness, that does sound a bit awkward and weird. But okay, we'll find out what people think about that. Sorry, yeah.
I guess we'll get used to it. But that I was just very surprised. I was very surprised. A, that the technology exists, and B, that they would do it in that way. But anyway, the important thing is that they're monitoring safety and social distancing and everything. So it's all good.
I bet you that technology has existed for 50 years, thanks to NASA or something like that, and they've just found a domestic application for it.
Probably.
Well, so there you go, folks. Michael is live from Madrid this morning. That is not a Zoom backdrop with him trying to pretend he's in a hotel. That is, you're absolutely right what you say there, the generic hotel backdrop.
It would be the worst Zoom backdrop to use. It would be so ridiculous.
On your screen, you'll see there, seriously, ask anything about Portugal. That's what we do on a Wednesday. And Michael's with us once a month with his particular angle. And as you can see, he's a complete and utter Iberian. So this is an interesting thing, because I was talking to Jerry from Expats Portugal about this. And for our American visitors and wannabe migrants to Portugal. Of course, being in Portugal is a jumping off point for the rest of Europe, because a lot of Americans have a very romantic relationship with Europe. And of course, being in Portugal means access to Paris and to London and to Madrid, for example. So what's your view on that? Getting to and from Spain, how easy or difficult is that?
Yeah, it's really easy. So the flight from Lisbon to Madrid is about 50 minutes. And they're an hour ahead. So what's brilliant is when you fly back, you actually arrive before you leave sometimes, when it's really quick with turbulence because of the hour difference. So it's a really good journey. There's also, finally, it looks like they're going to build eventually a high-speed train between Lisbon and Madrid, which I think would be a real game changer.
Wouldn't it?
But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think for the American or the non-European expat, should we say, that comes to Portugal, having that access to the rest of Europe, because from Lisbon you have, it's a 2.5-hour flight to London. It's under an hour flight to Madrid. It's like an hour and a half, 2-hour flight to Paris. So you really have, and then it's the closest European capital to the US from Europe as well. And you can even stop in the Azores on the way if you want to as well, to make the journey a bit more pleasant. So it's a real advantage. But what I would say, and I think I maybe touched on this the first time we ever did any content together, Carl, is that just because Spain and Portugal share a land border doesn't mean they have anything to do with each other. So it is worth taking that drive across or flight, because the two countries couldn't be more different. And don't make the mistake of speaking Spanish in Portugal, because they won't appreciate that at all.
Yes, it's an amazing thing. A lot of countries with borders are quite intermingled, aren't they? And there's just something about and it's not all mountainous, is it, necessarily? It's not like made impossible to connect. There is just something very strong about the respective cultures that's kept them in their own unique identities, border to border, it would seem.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way, you could almost compare it with England and Scotland, right? Is that from the outside, it would appear that we're both very similar, but it's not like that at all. But I think with Spain and Portugal, it's even more of a culture shock. One, because of the time difference. So immediately, you're an hour behind or an hour ahead, and also the culture of when you eat meals, because in Spain it tends to be a lot later. So the Spanish tend to have lunch at 2 and dinner at 10, whereas in Portugal they tend to have lunch earlier and dinner earlier as well. So little things like that. And then I guess the Portuguese, bless them, but in terms of Southern Europeans, they're perhaps a bit more similar to the UK in terms of the mentality. They're a little bit more reserved and shy, which I guess we quite like coming from the UK, because we're a bit more used to it. Whereas the Spanish are a lot more gregarious and outspoken and, full of energy. It's difficult to take that stereotype to literally, because, obviously there's huge variations. But as a general rule, I've spent a lot of time in both countries, and I can quite confidently say that is the case. So it's lovely to spend time in both countries, because you can get the best of both worlds when you want to. And the Spanish are a lot of fun. I mean, last night, and the Portuguese were great fun as well, but the Spanish take it to another level. They're really, yeah.
One of my great memories of a Spanish friend is her arriving at a party with a sangria in a bag. She had all the ingredients ready to get the party. To get the party started with a fruity bag full of alcohol and goodies, and she hit the ground running. It was a great evening. So yes, and I think it's something to do with boundaries as well, isn't it? Because it's as though within the Portuguese people, and forgive us, we are talking stereotypically, but how else do you do it without talking about 1 million individuals? And we don't have time to do that this morning. But that when you're inside the boundary, then you will experience the gregariousness and the straightforwardness, won't you? It's the kind of first impression or the drawbridge that's the thing. Maybe that's the same with all races, really, but it's the point that you get to it. And the Spaniards, I think, you get to that fairly quickly, and you have to earn it a little bit more with the Portuguese, possibly.
Yeah, definitely. I think, with the Portuguese, they will take a bit longer to form a friendship with you, and the Spanish are a bit more open and welcoming like that. But then with the Portuguese, once you have a Portuguese friend, they are literally your friend for life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, it's a different way of building relationships, and I completely respect it. I completely respect the differences, as we
absolutely, me too.
I've just seen Stephen.
I mean, in a way, it's true, isn't it? You don't want to be going into a Scottish pub and saying, "Hello, old chap. Any chance of a pint of warm and foamy bitter?" The same is true in a way. It's,
you don't want that from that scene in Train Spotting, right?
Excellent, Stephen. Good morning to you. Don't dare speak English in Scotland. Yeah, there are other issues at play, of course. It's not as if the Spaniards or the Portuguese are trying to seek independence from each other, is it? At this time in history, I believe there's an old Portuguese saying, "No good wind or marriage ever came from Spain." Don't know,
Gary. We have to be careful, my friend. There's a bit of banter then and tension that can sometimes happen between. I've never heard that expression before. We need to be careful, Carl. We're going to open ourselves up to all sorts of problems.
Well, you saw I got rid of it fairly swiftly.
Yeah, well done, mate.
Trouble is, it's immortalized on YouTube now with our two faces behind it, and Gary gets off scot-free. But we'll see what happens there. Hopefully, it'll blow over, just like that wind. Hola, bon dia a todos from Jordinja. Good morning to you, Jordinja. And actually, there was another a comment that I wanted to put in, and we got a lot to live up to this morning. Cindy B on YouTube yesterday put this comment on our YouTube channel, which I really loved, actually, and I'm always very happy to see your feedback. This show, she says, is so fun and informative. I think I'd watch it even if I wasn't moving to Portugal. How good is that?
That's the best feedback you could get, right? That's so cool.
I might just leave that there all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, and Jacqueline CDM, neighbours. I've got a few neighbours in this morning. Bon dia from the Silver Coast this morning. So I'm in the Silver Coast of Portugal, and Michael, of course, live from Madrid this morning. But without a what's the collective noun or the adjective? Madridians?
Madrileños.
Madrileños. Madrileños. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, but not that backdrop this morning. Believe us, he could be in any hotel anywhere in the world.
Anywhere right now, right?
He's in his back room. Let's pretend you're in, I don't know, Brazil next time. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Ponty, I've just come back from the Algarve. It was lovely to Mexico. Whilst there, I was told about the non-habitual residence status. Is this still done? It is still done. It seems to change slightly each year. And there's always an air of mystery and suspense and anxiety around it about whether people could get it or not.
The only difference now, Maxine, is that whereas before, so for example, if you were, let's say, a retiree or pensioner, before you weren't taxed any, and again, it depends on where you're coming from and the tax treaty between each country, but the general rule was before you wouldn't be taxed anything on top of what you would be your net pension income from your home country, but now they charge 10%. So it's not a huge amount, but it could impact someone's budget that before may have to just think about it a bit differently. That's the only.
Yeah, if every time you go to a festa or see a bit of roundabout art, you can feel like you've paid for it as well.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jim White, bon dia to you, Jim.
Bon dia, Jim.
Thomas Malloy from the Ask Our Expats team. Let me just put this on the screen quickly before I forget, because I do get a bit giggly and we have a bit of fun when Michael comes on. Tomorrow evening, it's the Ask Our Expats, Ask Anything About Life in Portugal. Very sociable event. Thomas will be there from 7:30 and everyone's welcome, and you can talk to our team about location and lifestyle in Portugal. It's good fun. And Thomas Malloy saying this morning, bon dia, Carl and Michael from a sunny Santarém this morning. So he knows about the Ribatejo Valley, and one of those people who claims Tamar as part of his. I mean, some people in central Portugal, Tamar is ours. And then you've got people like Thomas saying in Ribatejo, Santarém district, oh no, Tamar belongs to us. Go find out for yourself or talk to Thomas about that. More comments coming in. Maria Koster, also of our team, Ask Our Expats team. Good morning. One of my favourite Good Morning Portugal guests. Even more.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. That's very kind.
Yeah, she is in Tamar, actually. Who do you feel like you belong to, Maria? Central Portugal or the uppermost crown, jewel in the crown of the Ribatejo Valley? Morning, Carl and Michael. Thought it was going to be a Scooby-Doo episode if it wasn't for those pesky kids. What the case of the disappearing Michael, missing in Madrid? The janitor will come in and pull Michael's mask off in just a moment. How are you guys? Very good. How are you? I didn't ask you how you were this morning in all the hurly-burly of getting us on screen, Michael. I guess you were. Maybe a bit hungover, right?
No, not at all, mate. You know, I stopped drinking alcohol about 5 months ago. I did actually have a couple of drinks last night for the first time in a while. So I had because they had. I'm gonna sound like a real ponce now, but they had some very good and expensive champagne, so I couldn't resist just having one glass. And then the team that organised the event invited me out for a beer after the event. So I did have a little bit of a dabble, but I'm feeling extremely fresh because I've been taking good care of myself, which was needed.
Thank you very much for asking, Mayank Dixit. You know how we are there. I've got to ask you. I mean, this is Ask Anything About Portugal, but let's ask anything about alcohol, because that is quite a big change for you. I'm going to make it sound like you're a real boozer before, but you like to drink and a beer, didn't you? I mean, like the next man, as it were. Yes. But you decided to stop.
I think maybe this is something that a lot of people can relate to. So I think, and I'm perfectly comfortable talking about it openly. So I think during the pandemic last year, especially, a lot of us would drink more at home. And when you look at the data of alcohol purchasing and consumption in Portugal, just like everywhere, you can see it's gone up quite exponentially. I just got to a point, mate, where like around Christmas time, I'd put on a bit of weight. I felt unhealthy and a bit bloated, and I've been drinking a bit too much. So got to January the 1st, I decided to do a dry January, but I didn't put a date on it. I just thought I'll do 1 month and see how it goes. And after just 2 weeks, I started to feel really good, amazing. And I was also doing which I'm still doing most of the time, an intermittent fasting diet where you fast for 16 hours and eat for 8. And that helped me immensely control my diet and specifically my alcohol intake, which was 0, because in the evenings you're not allowed to do anything other than drink water. So I've lost about 8 or 9 kilos in weight in the last 5 months, and I, as I said, last night I had a couple of drinks, and a week ago I had my first sort of drink in like 5 months. That one actually didn't go down very well. I think because I'd been on a long journey from Porto, and it was the first thing I'd had on an empty stomach, and I didn't really enjoy it. So I thought I'd try again last night, as we were in a really nice sort of setting with friends and clients and whatnot. And it was really nice. So I'm going to probably continue with my sobriety, but maybe have the odd tipple, just because I feel a lot more like myself, really, when I'm living that kind of lifestyle. But yeah, maybe it's something people can relate to, because I think we all perhaps indulged a little bit more than we should have during the pandemic, when we're all at home and
maybe relied on it a bit too much. The temptations are here, obviously. We tonight, for example, tomorrow evening, it's our Good Morning Portugal wine club, with incredible Portuguese wines. That does make it a bit more difficult. It's the Vargem de Marão with Penny Albertella tomorrow evening, so do join us for that. That gives me an opportunity to plug our wine club. But yeah, it is all too easy, a drinking culture. So I take my hat off to you. Not a place I would look forward to stopping drinking in is Portugal and its culture, which relies really heavily on a tipple. And I think you sound like, to me, the best kind of drinker. Like, I don't really drink unless there's very expensive champagne. That's the sort of that's classy drinking, I think. Yeah,
you know what? It's interesting because I think there are some people, there are some, even like, some famous people that you see talk about it, like, for example, David Beckham, who throughout his playing career and still now, I think he takes very good care of himself. But he always says, again, we don't know how true it is, but he will claim that instead of, spending a lot of money on a lot of drinks on a particular night, he will just buy a really good whiskey or a good glass of wine and just have one, but the quality is really high. So I'm thinking that might be my new strategy if I decide to start drinking more frequently. But what's great, Carl, is that when you don't drink, you focus a lot more on the food. And I've been doing that. I've been cooking a lot more. And I really look forward to making my family meals at home. And I'll tell you one thing, the non-alcoholic beer market has really improved. So if anyone wants any recommendations, I can recommend a few. And you'll be surprised at how close the taste is to real beer. This is a cultural thing, because in England, if you walk into a pub and ask for a non-alcoholic beer, they'll throw you out, or they'll go to the back of the fridge and have to blow cobwebs away to get it, because we don't have that culture. But in Spain and Portugal, they really do. And you can go to some bars and pubs and they will even have the non-alcoholic beer on tap. And it tastes really good, especially when it's ice cold. So, my favorite one is Superbock Black. So I prefer the ales or the sort of black beers that are non-alcoholic, because they tend to have more flavor, and that masks the lack of alcohol in there. So for anyone who's thinking about not drinking or wants an alternative, if they have stopped drinking, then non-alcoholic beer in Portugal, there's a lot of choices for sure.
And it's the Sagres Blue, isn't it? There's the
Sagres Blue, which is the malt one, and that's quite good as well. And then you've got Heineken 0.0 is a bit more expensive, but that's very good as well. So there's quite a few. If you go to a big supermarket like Continente or big Pingo Doce, then you will find a lot of options. And then even Aldi and Lidl as well, which are cheaper. They have a lot of options as well.
Very, very interesting, and thank you for making that point, because it was really grim, wasn't it? I mean, when the first non-alcoholic beers came out, people did. I think it was almost like on Tomorrow's World. It was on programs that celebrated the
Tomorrow's World.
It's like tonight on Tomorrow's World, we look at beer without alcohol in it.
Yeah.
Raymond Burr and Michael, whatever his name was, looking at that. It's like drinking
Michael Burke, that's right.
Yeah, pretending it tasted okay. This is what astronauts drink. This is the beer astronauts drink, because they're not allowed to fire, be in their rockets under the influence. But it's come a long way, I think, since those days. And indeed, intermittent fasting, laying off the booze, or drinking more, as David Beckham allegedly does. All of that sounds really good, doesn't it? Being a bit more discerning, enjoying it a bit more, maybe, and focusing on the quality rather than quantity. Excellent stuff. And when you said fasting for 16, eating for 8, I think what Michael means is not eating for a constant 8 hours. You eat within an 8-hour time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's not like you're constantly eating the whole time. No, I tend to have one really big meal, which, to be honest, I think is quite a Southern European thing to do, because in England we tend to have our main meal at dinner time, but in Portugal it's lunch. So I've really got into that, and especially now with this diet, I have a really big lunch, and then I'll have a few bits and maybe a snack in the afternoon, and then my evening meal will be extremely light. And that way I go to bed with an empty stomach. I don't feel bloated. In fact, last night I slept really badly because I didn't fast yesterday, because it can be quite an anti-sociable thing. So you can sort of plan ahead if you're having a dinner. Yeah. So I ended up eating quite a lot last night, and I didn't fall asleep until about 2 a.m.
He's a good guest to have, though. If you want to talk to Michael Heron one-to-one, invite him around for dinner. One glass of decent wine and just a couple of crackers and a bit.
I'm a cheap date.
That's it. So it's been Ask Anything about Michael Heron's new lifestyle choices, but very interesting, I have to say. And I think you're in a good company. A lot of people thinking about this at the moment, especially sort of post-pandemic. Well, if I could dare say that, but yes, certainly after a year.
How was it for you, Carl, during the pandemic? Did you find, were you and were you and Louisa drinking a bit more than normal? Because you're quite good, aren't you? Generally, you don't drink a huge
Yeah,
amount.
I'm not a massive boozer. I
No.
mean, what having the I would drink less if it wasn't for our two programs, the wine club. And I'm not blaming, I take full responsibility. That's the worst sort of thing, isn't it? It's like, I'm blaming other people for my drinking or something else. I take complete responsibility for my volume of alcohol intake. But having a wine club every week, and a man cave where where we'd like, whoa, what are you drinking? That certainly has kept me, drinking every week.
Yeah.
And Louisa drinks sometimes and not others. And when she's not drinking, there's not much incentive to be opening a bottle, of an evening. And that's the habit, isn't it? That's the big. I think that's the big and interesting habit for people, who live as couples. It's like, should we open a bottle? Yeah, okay. Well, just have a glass each, and then inevitably that'll be a second glass each, and then eventually it might be, well, should we open another bottle and just have one glass of that, and on it goes. And then if you start doing that every night, and
I have to shout out to my gorgeous wife Roxy, because she accompanied me on the no drinking diet at the start of January. And she also went at least 4 months without drinking, and she started drinking again a couple of weeks ago. But that was a real help for both of us, I think, as a team to do it. And it got to a point where she will now occasionally drink, and I don't feel any temptation to. And she doesn't drink at home really anymore. She only drinks when she's out with friends or whatever. So I think if you're in a couple, then it's really it can be quite important to do it together, because, like you said, you get a bottle of wine, and before you know it, you've had 3 or 4 glasses each, and it's just so easy, isn't it? It just goes down, especially the beautiful Portuguese wine.
Exactly, and the price of it, the value here, and then it's like, oh, that was really nice. Well, do we open another bottle? Should we just have a quick shot of Beryl? Or Aguardent? That's the sort. So that's something to look forward to, folks. We're not trying to put you off. If you're coming to Portugal, certainly something to look forward to, and it's your life, your decision.
But tuck in responsibly.
Well, yeah, and it's just an interesting thing to talk about, and I think you're not alone in this phenomenon. Paul Richards is here as well. Greetings from South Africa. Beautiful sunny warm day here in the Algarve, hitting 23. Yeah, it's a beautiful day on the Silver Coast here as well, but feels a lot warmer. Off we go again, house hunting, as they say. Look and thou shalt find. Absolutely, so many quotes from the Bible. Talking of which, if you're in our community and you've enjoyed my conversations with Donna Jacqueline, we were doing a program called Life, Death, and Everything in Between. We have rebranded, regrouped, and we launch 8 this Sunday with a new program called The Search for a Church, which is, I don't know, a lot of people, I think, ooh, religion. I can't quite find my right access to that. Come and have a chat with us from 8 o'clock on Sunday. Always interesting. And Jacqueline, she is, in many ways, the spiritual iron fist in a velvet glove. Very steadfast in her conviction, inspiringly so, and a great company to talk to about any aspect of life, death, and everything in between. 8 o'clock on Sunday. Join us for that. Stephen Wells is a bon dia before he got onto his funnies a little bit later on, and I'm sure there's more material from Stephen coming up. Bon dia, Stephen from Kaldashtaranya, one of my keeping up with the Kardashian brethren here. We're gonna have to start a little expat soap opera of that name. Thanks to John Rooney for that.
Amazing.
The Kardashians. Bon dia from Deborah Davies. Haven't seen you for a while. I think you are bringing some people to the yard, as it were, this morning when you appear on the show, Michael. Get the questions in for Michael. Ask anything about Portugal. Live from Madrid this morning. If living in Portugal, can you get by without the language? You can, but we wouldn't recommend it, right, Michael?
No. I mean, I think we both agree on this one, don't we, Carl? That you can survive because the level of English is very high in general, but if you take the effort to learn it, it will enrich your experience, and you'll have a better, relationship with the locals. So yeah, definitely learn it if you can.
And it's a bit like, how when some people are getting on a bit and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to do Sudoku to keep my mind sharp. Yeah. Why not learn a language instead? I mean, how useful is Sudoku when you're out and about? Even if you're a black belt in Sudoku, you don't often find yourselves in many situations where it's called to the front of your skill set. Learning a new language,
especially if you live in the country. I mean, this was, I think, the frustrating thing that maybe in the UK we had with languages at school, is that, very rarely would you get the chance to practice them. Whereas if you're living in a country and you learn it, you can immediately practice it, and you can immediately immerse yourself in it, and your your like the growth, the learning curve is a lot faster if you're willing to put the effort in, and you get immediate reward, which is you can actually communicate with people. So yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, really.
And that moment, I mean, I've probably mentioned this before, but when I first met Michael, we went out for lunch and he was talking to the waiter completely in Portuguese. I had that as a bar for myself. I was so impressed, and I was and I was thinking to myself, I want to do that. And now when I do that, and I remember the first few times, and even now, I still come home and and I say to Louisa, I did all of that in Portuguese, like from the moment going in the door and leaving, paying the bill, all in Portuguese. And there might have been a moment where you've been indulged a bit. They know you're not Portuguese, but it's such a milestone. So Randy M, please learn the language, but you will get by without it. Don't be put off.
Obviously, if you're in a more serious situation, like imagine you have to go and see a doctor or something, then obviously because I still do it sometimes. I'll book an appointment and make sure it's a doctor that can speak English in case there's something that I don't know the word for in Portuguese, which with medical terms often happens, right? But I was the same as you, mate. When I first arrived in Portugal, that was my initial goal as well, just to be able to hold a conversation down with a waiter, and just from the second I walked into the restaurant to leaving, do everything in Portuguese. And then you're right, you get home and you start to feel really really proud of yourself, that you've done that. And then like little incremental steps you start to take, and then it's like a jigsaw puzzle that you slowly piece together. It's really nice.
And Michael makes a good point. I mean, it just reminds me of the no nurse, I said, remove his spectacles joke. So yes, if it comes to something serious like a medical situation or legal situation, being able to speak English is quite useful. And it's always like 2 forward, 1 back. You'll go out feeling quite proud of yourself one day, and you'll get a blast of Portuguese, and it will knock your confidence, because you just could pick out one word maybe of what seems like a tirade of Portuguese, and you just have to say, I'm so sorry, and it's a bit of a come down. But those days are few and far between, and people are very helpful. That's the other thing. There is not a snootiness, and if you do try, you'll be given a lot of love and support and appreciation from Portuguese people.
Absolutely.
Hey, look at this. I knew it. Joe K, my neighbor here, the camera technology was provided from my previous company, Hitachi, used at airports, sports arenas, and malls. I guess temperatures have been monitored for all sorts of reasons, haven't they? It's an interesting technology that is now finding it a very common application. Bon dia, todos amigos, from Prosecco Peggy, who is in the house. Peggy Littrell, who I don't think had a dry January and is not following you, but who knows?
What a brilliant name, Prosecco Peggy.
Oh yes. Everyone should have a nickname here, and she's leading the way with that for sure. Joel is here from Matosinhos as well. Bon dia to you. Gary Austin's comment, which I'll put up there quickly, and then take off again quickly as well. Spanish outspoken. Okay, this may be something that we've opened up this morning whenever we talk about this. Thank you everybody for all your wonderful comments and questions on Ask Anything About Portugal Wednesday. Michael here, live from Madrid. Spanish outspoken depends if you speak in Spanish or not, because they become deaf if a Portuguese speaks to them. That is from a Portugueser saying that. Hola, have you heard of people being scanned in Germany at airports to determine vaccine status? I know this sounds bizarre, but I was told of someone that experienced this at the airport. Is that a bit of German humor, I wonder? I'm going to scan you now to see if you've had the vaccine. I don't think that's possible. Now, come on. I don't think so. I imagine this ha is about speaking English in Scotland. Joe K could be Scottish. I think that's possibly a Scottish name, isn't it? We'll find out, of course, unless he's stormed off in a Scottish huff already. Gary, there we go. Name bons-vindos.
The same expression in Portuguese, the one from
and a bon dia from our bar this morning. Another social hand grenade thrown in. Sorry. Yeah, Gary, we can rely on you for that. And they're the Madridians, as I would have said it, of course.
Madridians, very good.
Very good. Debbie Doos is here as well this morning. Good morning, Carl. It's going to be a hot one today. No need for any scanning. We just know it's going to be hot here in Portugal. About time too. And that question, I think we already dealt with that. Can you live in Portugal and only speak English? What is the average price flight from? I think that's a word. What's it called? Autocorrect from potential to Madrid. I guess he's talking about Lisbon, isn't he? Or Porto, maybe.
I think so. Yes, I mean it's pretty cheap because there's a lot of different airlines that do the flight. So you have obviously you have TAP, but then you have EasyJet, and you also have Air Europa and Iberia. So I flew with Iberia, and I think it was around €90 for a return. But sometimes if you fly, if you book a bit more in advance, then you can probably get it for cheaper. So yeah, I'd say for a return flight, under €100 on average, and possibly as little as 60 if you book at the right time or during the week.
Even at the moment, I mean, because I just thought air travel, the prices were going to hike right up, but not the case.
No, because this particular route has multiple carriers and they're all in competition with each other. So, and they want people to travel, so they're being very competitive at the moment. And generally, you can find cheap flights from Lisbon to Madrid and back because there's like 4 or 5 airlines competing. On some routes you only have 1 or 2 airlines, so they can take the mickey a little bit. But with this particular route, it's very, very affordable most of the time. And if you decide to drive, I've done that journey in 5 hours, no problem. So it's not. Sometimes maybe if you're traveling with small children and there's 4 of you, then probably it might be easier. If you think about the time you take to get from home to the airport, on the plane, arrive, and then it's probably around the same time when you add it all up. So
just 5 hours then to drive from Lisbon to Madrid.
From Lisbon to Madrid, 5 hours. Yeah, I mean that's stopping for like 10 minutes for petrol and driving at Portuguese speed, should we say? But yeah, 5 hours is very, very achievable.
Okay, very, very interesting. All right, that's good to know. On with the questions then. Joel, Portuguese, responding to this language question as well. Where are we? Yes, it depends if you live in a city area or not. A little bit of effort in trying to speak the local language gets you further. Of course it does. Thank you for that, Joel. Mark Rigby, bon dia from a sunny Povoa de Varzim this morning. Greetings to Carl and Michael. Thanks, Mark.
Good morning, Mark. Bon dia.
Igualmente. Michael, refriends. My husband and I love entertaining at home, and we've had a few of our new Portuguese friends over for lunch. Cultural question. Excellent.
Nice.
Lunch, dinner or drinks. These are the ones you love, right?
Yeah.
We don't invite with the idea of an invite back. But in Canada, US, it's a kind of given that you host, then you'd be invited over. That doesn't seem to be the norm in Portugal. In my experience, isolated, or is it an isolated experience for Maria, or do you think the majority of Portuguese just don't entertain at home? Fantastic question.
Yeah, really good question. I mean, Maria, the best example I can give you is, so we've been living in Portugal for 7 years, and I can count the amount of times on my hand how many times we've been invited over for dinner or lunch at a Portuguese home. And I've got some very good friends here. I would say even amongst the Portuguese, they don't do it as often as other countries because they're extremely family oriented. So every Sunday is like a ritual. They will have lunch with the family, with the grandparents, with the, brothers, sisters all together, which, is lovely. But I think it is a cultural thing to Portugal. And also it's something that will take a while. Again, you can't generalize because some Portuguese are a lot more open to this than others, but in general, they tend to be like that. Whereas, if you compare it to Spain, for example, I mean, you can be around someone's house barely knowing them. They're just more used to it. So what I would say is don't be offended by it. Don't think that it means they don't like you or don't want to build a relationship with you. It's just they do it at a slower pace. So be patient, give them time, and you will eventually be invited around. And if they don't do it often, it's just because they really focus on family at the weekend. So it's just not something they do as often. What I find they like to do more is meet you out for lunch. Rather than bring you to their home. And understand it. Your home is quite an intimate place. So they're just a bit more shy in that sense. And it's purely a cultural thing. So if that's been your experience, Maria, it's been the same for me, and I think it's the same for pretty much every expat I've met. So
they shouldn't. It's not that they're cooking or anything like that, then. Okay. Don't take it personally, Maria.
Don't take it personally. No, don't. And likewise, don't be offended if you cook for a Portuguese and they come over and maybe there's certain things they don't eat, or don't want to eat. They're just very particular sometimes in situations like that, and don't think they're just being rude. It's just the way they are sometimes.
Very, very interesting. Yes, and it is so cultural, isn't it? Because I was I had a beautiful email from somebody I'm doing some consultation work with through our Ask Our Expats project, and they said, yeah, can't wait to when we're over to get together with you and your spouse and go out for dinner. And that to me seems very North American, US, Canada hospitality. Yeah. People do that. It's a lifestyle thing, isn't it? And the Brits are like, yeah, thanks for all your help. I can't wait to buy you a beer. It's kind of, there's different levels. There's different levels.
There is. I mean, I'll tell you one thing that I do love about the Portuguese, and maybe this is more in like a business setting, but in Portugal, it's very normal instead of having a meeting to have lunch. So you'll have like a 2-hour lunch with a client or a business contact or a prospective client, and it's a great way to spend time with someone, and it's much less informal than meeting at their office and sitting in a meeting room and being brought coffee and talking in a very and that does happen as well. But I do love the Portuguese lunch. So a lot of my Portuguese friends and clients, instead of giving them perhaps the awkward compromise of having to do things at the weekend, we'll often have lunch on days during the week, and that's the way I spend time with them, and that's fine, and I respect that, and that they'd rather spend the weekend with their family.
Less stressful as well, isn't it? I mean, in many ways, because it's done and dusted, isn't it? Someone else is cooking. You've done what you needed to do. You've had your meeting, and then it's family time at the weekend, and there's a boundary there. Very, very interesting. Okay, I hope that helps, Maria.
Yeah.
Did you want to say more there, Michael?
No, just to say that for me, I'm someone that I really like, as you know, Kyle, I like having people over, especially for barbecues in the summer and that sort of thing. So I think it would be nice if the Portuguese would be a little bit more flexible about it, because they might be missing out on opportunities to meet more people outside of their social circle. But yeah, that was it. I
see what you're doing there. I was going to say you're throwing down the gauntlet, but you're throwing down the oven glove, aren't you?
The oven glove. Yeah.
He's throwing down the oven glove for a different kind of hospitality there. Let's see. We'll check in with him. We'll ask him next time, see how that's going. The neighborhood recycle, but this is the barometer, isn't it, of intake? Yeah. The wine bottles is a good indicator of the drinking level. And some people are looking around going, this is for 2 weeks. It's two. I mean, all these bottles. It's 2 weeks. It's not just last night or but you're absolutely right, Joe Kay. the recycling of shame. Tamar is both. Oh, trying to settle the old argument here.
Wow, this argument keeps coming up, doesn't it? People love it.
It's one of the historical regions of Portugal. That's why. I mean, there's probably other people claiming it as well. Then, to be fair, Central's Portugal is a modern designation. Which overlaps with various historical regions. A point of order from Senora Malloy this morning. Thank you for that, Thomas. So yes, okay, we got something of an answer there on that. Let's see if Maria might come back at you on that. Intermittent fasting is a great way for changing the patterns around drinking. So Stephen Wells catching up a bit there. Did you like the write-up I did on you in the new magazine? I haven't seen it yet. I need to be Debbie. Can you do us a favor? This is Portugal Living. This is a new magazine. I was called Happy Man Karlnson, I think, which I'm quite happy with, obviously. But can you put the link in the comments, Debbie, so that everyone can download?
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Circus School Paul. Bon dia, guys. Just got back from Portugal after seeing your house. Oh, excellent. And land that we bought unseen a few months ago. How was that moment? Did you take a photo of your face as you saw it? Luckily, it's exactly what we wanted. Phew! It was a risk buying unseen, but it worked. Congratulations. Great news, Mr. and Mrs. Circus School. That's fantastic. Gary, I know what you mean, Michael. Sometimes I feel like I've become a vino basking shark after buying a box of soapy ash. Yes, and that's another thing. You never know how many you've drunk or how many are yet to come in that box, and it almost becomes an experiment. I wonder if there's another glass in there. I'll just try.
Oh, the boxes with the tap, right?
Yes, those. Thomas Malloy. I know you addressed that to Michael, but you know me. Oh yes. That's quite normal. Special meals happen out. Oh, here we go. So here's the eating out thing, or inviting people to dinner. My gut feeling, says Thomas, is that it has a lot to do with the traditional configuration of Portuguese homes, which didn't have entertaining space except for the very wealthy. So there isn't the tradition. Yes, I guess it's dormitory style living, isn't it? You live outside, or you live in the cafes and restaurants. Even now, the most Portuguese homes don't have the kind of room for receiving guests. Yes, the drawing room and the reception room that one might have in the UK, even front rooms in modest terms, or the States. Also, eating out. Oh, we'll come back to that.
I mean, maybe Thomas thinks we're aristocracy, but I can
Well,
assure
yes,
Thomas that that all Portuguese homes have plenty of space to entertain. I don't believe that. That may have been the reason 100 years ago, but that's
okay.
the reason now.
Yeah, just because Thomas's butler greets you on arrival and takes your top hat and cane for safekeeping, and then seats you in the reception.
I just think that it's just for the, and I completely respect that. I think for the Portuguese, it's just a very intimate thing. So perhaps if you do get invited, it's their way of showing you how special it is and how important you are to them. So it's just one of those things.
The threshold of familiarity. You can feel good if you've been invited to a Portuguese house. Good morning to you, Rashid, as well. Rashid Kayat is here. That's changed a lot in the UK over the past 5 years. Yes, this is the non-alcoholic booze. Yes,
yeah. So I left 7 years ago, so I probably missed that culture there, that cultural change happening.
Yeah, and I mean, can you imagine going out on it's going to be a slightly strange pub crawl of non-alcoholic beers, and everyone just getting in their cars and driving home and patting each other on the back. No one hugging each other and telling them how much they love them or anything like that. Just cold drinks, really. Beer flavored pop. But good to see it's a Europe-wide phenomenon now, says Arbar. Sadly, but cannot agree with Michael about the no alcohol beers. It's a contentious one this morning. Maybe because
we like that.
Distance of Madrid.
I agree. I will say to Paul is the normal Sagres non-alcoholic is terrible, but the blue label, the Malta one, has a bit more flavour in it. But yeah, I mean, Paul is correct that the Sagres one, the normal one, isn't particularly good. So I tend to do the malt, the like the Guinnessy type non-alcoholic ones, like the Superbock Black, that have more flavour. But yeah, some of them are pretty bad.
And that's a pretty poor review. The Sagres one has added soap to replace the alcohol.
Yeah, it does taste. I know exactly the one he means as well, and yeah, I can agree it does taste.
Well, at least they don't give you a headache anymore. A bit like decaffeinated coffee as well. That used to be terrible. I don't know what chemicals were in it, but
it's now almost the same. I can barely tell the difference.
What? So have you dared ask for a decaffeinated coffee in Portugal as well?
I have, and I had one last night after the meal because I didn't want to be, even though I didn't sleep very well anyway, I didn't want to add to that, and it tasted great. It tasted like a normal coffee.
And if anyone's asking, it's descafeinado, isn't it? I think
descafeinado, yeah.
Descafeinado. If you do want to go out and look weird, and I mean,
like me, non-alcoholic beer and descafeinado.
Okay, all right. So we've got an intermittent faster in here, I think. Bon dia, alegria. I've recently heard that it's necessary to have fiscal representation if you have a bank account and/or property in Portugal and you're not a resident. Any advice on this? Yes, this is quite a flurry, isn't it, of anxiety at the moment. What do you make of this suggestion, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many factors that can determine that, Adrian. So as always, probably your best bet is, you're welcome to contact me, but probably your best bet is to go on the forum of the partners that you guys have, right? They'll have an account on there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good call, Michael, because it is so personal. And on the Expats Portugal forum, you are likely to encounter someone who says, yes, don't worry, I found a fiscal representative. They charge me €20 a month or something just to keep it in order. Worth having. They know what they're doing. Someone else might say, it's not been the case for us. We're absolutely so. Yeah, I think, it's a bit like if you ask what the law is, you get told, don't you? Or if you ask the government for guidance, they're going to tell you one thing, the actual reality of that. And I'm not suggesting you break the law for 1 minute, but I'm certain there are people in Portugal who don't have fiscal representatives, whose financial matters are completely in order. But it's still good advice to have a fiscal representative.
Yeah, well, maybe you do it in the beginning, and then once you feel comfortable with doing it yourself, because for example, like because everyone in Portugal has to do an annual tax return, even if you're an employee, which people find quite strange when they come here if they're employed by someone else. And often it's good to have an accountant do that. But the price of doing an annual tax return can be as little as €50 that you just pay once a year. So it actually kind of makes sense to do that. But then in terms of a fiscal representative for something like that, it would just depend on a number of factors. So if you want to, Adrian, you're more than welcome to email me, but probably you're better off going to the forum or seeing the list of companies that are partnered with Expats Portugal, and you can just take your pick.
And here's the thing: you don't know what you don't know about being here, and it might be that the fiscal representative, if they're good, can save you some money or alert you to some sort of system. NHR as an example that you might not
exactly. It's always worth talking to an accountant, because there may be other things you didn't realize you needed, and they'll be able to help you. And
I will put our business directory link on the screen so you can go in there, and we get some pretty good rates working with our partners. And there are a number of organizations that will be able to help you in this regard. So go have a look in the business directory. Just pop in that in the comments now for you, Adrian Caffrey. Sarah AM says, good morning. Good morning to you. Bon dia.
Good morning, sir.
Wasn't Barbican one of the first non-alcoholic beers?
Yes, it was. In fact, a good bit of trivia knowledge here. So it's what Ronnie Cray would drink that at when he was in where was he in that
Wormwood Scrubs?
No. He was in Parkhurst, and then they moved him to a psychiatric ward.
Oh, Broadmoor.
That's right. So if you went to visit Ronnie Cray back in the day when he was in Broadmoor, he would expect you to bring him Barbican beer, and that's what he would drink apparently. So yeah, I think this was something that was from like probably like the 70s or the 80s, I think.
An incongruous poster boy. I mean, ideally, who would you want? I mean, you probably prefer David Beckham, wouldn't you?
If you call me old-fashioned, but if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably choose David Beckham.
Yes, as a role model. Hello, Michael. Can I ask a legal question? Ask away. That's what it's all about this morning. We can't guarantee to answer it, especially if it's a libelous and very personal thing. But in general terms, any questions, bring them on. We tried some no alcohol gin recently. Why would you do a thing like that, Malloy? That is why. Sorry, I was very familiar with him there, calling him Malloy, like we're at public school together. But I'm just thinking to myself there, that's why people aren't inviting you round, Thomas.
Yeah.
The no alcohol gin rumor has got round. It's vile on its own.
I've heard of low alcohol gin and tonic drinks that you can buy in the supermarket in the UK that are meant to taste very good, and they have like 0.5% or something. Yeah. But I am quite a fan of making my own sort of drinks. Just not to be drinking water all the time, but like a nice tonic with ice and a bit of lemon, or a couple of slices of strawberry or a slice of orange and grapefruit. That works very well because you get the bitterness of the grapefruit, but then the sort of citrusy flavor of the orange with the tonic. That works very well. And if you have it in a nice fishbowl glass, you can almost kid yourself that you are having a gin and tonic. So
you're driving people to non-alcoholic drink this morning.
Who would have thought it that I would be the person driving this change? Like, so funny.
It's basically a thin botanical syrup. But still, when it's the same price as the alcoholic version. Yes, exactly. They need to be cheaper, don't they? But obviously they haven't got the scale of production, so they're more expensive for this sort of thing. And it's people looking for the flavor, isn't it? That first thing, because that's so much of it, isn't it? It's the beer and the gin, that first sip, isn't it? That does it, and then it's downhill from there potentially. I think this is probably true, Stephen. I only drink when I'm on air, which is a terrible thing to have on your CV, really, isn't it? So I'm going to have to manage that a little bit.
Depends how often you're on air and when.
Every day, Michael. Dzień dobry, 6 days a week. Anyway, dzień dobry from Poland this morning, and Barbara. Morning, Michael. Here we go. This is a lovely question. What's the best thing about Portugal versus living in the UK? It's been so long he can't remember, but anyway, we'll try him. And what's the single thing you miss the most? If anything, excluding family. Family's a given. This is the hard thing for expats.
Yeah,
you do have the expat guilt, grief, etc., of not being and seeing as the people you love as regularly as you might do if you're living there. But yeah, good question. What do you reckon, Michael?
It's a really good question. I mean, there's quite a few things about Portugal that the best thing. I mean, probably the weather. Just because. I think in terms of Europe, and I know we've covered this to death, but just to answer the question, I think especially the Lisbon area, you have the best weather all year round of any capital city in Europe, because in the summer it will never go over 30 usually, and in the winter it stays extremely mild, and you have the odd month of rain, but it's very consistent. So I would say the weather and the sun especially. What I miss the most, the rain. No, I'm kidding.
The snow, yeah, the snow.
The snow. Well, essentially, my son is 5 and he's never seen snow. So yeah, that's one maybe. No, I'd say I think, and this might sound a bit ironic given what I've revealed about my lifestyle change, but I think pubs, proper, village, country pubs. I think I really miss that, because in Portugal, if you go to a big city, you'll find like a generic O'Neill's or something in one of the cities, but they tend to be tourists. They tend to be very generic. They don't tend to have locals like you would get in the UK. And just being able to go in, sit on a comfortable sofa, have a pint with alcohol or without, in front of the fireplace, reading a newspaper. That I do miss a lot, and I think that's something probably that a lot of expats here can relate to. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe now there are certain pubs, and if anyone can recommend any in the Lisbon or Cascais area, I'd love to know any pubs that actually do have a local vibe to it with regulars. That would be something I'd be very interested to know. And maybe they're more common in the Algarve, I don't know. But that would be the thing I miss the most, yeah.
Rod Stewart was spotted in, I think in Portugal, I'm not sure, but down in the Algarve, standing outside an O'Neill's, which caused me to create a meme. When you're in Portugal and you can't wait to get to your favourite Portuguese bar, there's Rod standing outside O'Neill's. Quite a lot of celebrities around at the moment. Chico was with us on Monday, of course, with a video. We'll have some live Chico time soon. He's up for joining us on the show at some point. Looking forward to that. He's in the Algarve as well. So there you go. And I would agree with you. You want a carpet that smells of beer, cigarettes, perfume, and many campaigns. A campaign-stained carpet of a traditional British pub is I think would sum it up there. And yeah, the sunshine, of course, is at the core of Portuguese life, isn't it? And I was reminded, I was at the Obudosh Lagoon the other day with the kids, and we were in a cafe, which I love to do, and that was one of the full-on Portuguese exchanges. But within walking distance of the cafe, Michael, is a public Parque de Morendas where you can take your own coals, and there is a municipal civic barbecue there. And I was thinking to myself, there's no way in a pub in Devon, for example, that they would allow within a few steps an open picnic area where people bring their own food. It just wouldn't happen. It would seem like, anti-capitalistic. We can't have people cooking their own food within several feet of our establishment. But people,
no, this culture of barbecuing is amazing. Because I remember even I went to the first time I went to Aveiro. Was for the Supertaça de Portugal, which is like, for those of you who follow football, it's like the equivalent of the Community Shield in England. So the winner of the cup from the previous year plays the winner of the league. So I went there with Rosanna. We went to see Benfica play Guimarães, and that was in Aveiro. And there were about 20,000 of each set of fans. And the fans from Guimarães, literally nearly all of them without fail, were in the car park behind the stadium and set up their own little sort of pitches next to their cars with their barbecues, cooking their bifanas. And I just thought, this is awesome. Like, what amazing culture. Because it's just, being able to, they bring those, those disposable barbecues that, you just light and then you throw away when you're finished. And yeah, you're right. You see that a lot. There's a lot of parks, not so much now because of COVID, but before, a lot of parks that will have a designated barbecue area where you just go have your barbecue. You just got to take coal and food. I mean, it's fantastic. So yeah, that's something else that's wonderful about Portugal for sure.
Yeah, I was before I moved further up in the north in Anadia. I went to the Lidl, and there's a gypsy family parked up selling baskets, and I love buying. I've got too many baskets now, but the dad of the family, that's a beautiful newborn baby it looked like, and he was proudly holding his newborn baby. In between keeping the barbecue going, making baskets, and he had a keg. He had a little mini keg of Sagres on the table as well. Wow. He had everything. He had it all going on there. It was amazing. Dominique Carr, the locals are so appreciative that you made the effort, thus enriching your experiences. Very good, Dominique, about the language, of course. We will draw to a close now. I've got Michael here. I've kept him for an hour already. We'll no more questions, please. I'm sorry to say that, but we've all got lives to live. My question, when you register residency in Portugal, but you don't stay more than 180 days in the country per year, does one need to pay income tax on foreign income from salary earned and received in Dubai? Is that a bit too specialist, or dare you take a pop
No,
on?
no. I mean, again, there's other factors that could determine that, Sarah. So you're welcome to email me, michael@avanlight.com, or feel free to check out the list of tax and accountant specialists on the Portugal Expats directory list. I'm sure they'll be able to help as well.
We're hoping to get Michael in that directory. That's the obvious thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
We need you in there, fella. So yes, I think it will, as Michael says, it will depend a little bit on some of your other personal circumstances. But speak to an expert on that at length and in a different sort of environment. Bon dia to all from the Brewer family in a very sunny West Sussex this morning. That's the sort of place where you will see those pubs we talked about in Sussex.
Bon dia to the Brewers. Fantastic.
I can't say that name now. I'm going to call you KK for the time being, if that's all right. And from KK to Joe K, I'm American. I knew he was Scottish, not American of Polish heritage. Yeah, we're kind of way off there. Sorry about that, Joe. None meant. Oi, says that's very sort of colloquial and familiar, isn't it? Carlos, I'm surprised he didn't say "Oi, Malta," which is like, all right, blokes, isn't it? All right, geezers. Bon dia all from Capricorn 12. There are some great apps out there to learn Portuguese. I use Memrise. Can't wait to get back to Portugal to see if I've progressed. Yeah, it's a good moment to test your work. Mia and Philomena join us obviously on various Fridays of the month to help you in the same way. And yes, Mia's online course, you can find that in our directory as well. What part of Portugal, I beg your pardon, has the least amount of rainfall in a year? Alentejo, right, for Ali?
Yeah, I think you just want to avoid the north if you want less rain. So the north is beautiful, by the way. I'm not dissing the north, but it tends to rain less in the south, and I think probably the mid-central Portugal is probably where it rains the least. Because if you live closer to the coast, you can get slightly more frequent rainfall. But normally in Portugal, the way it tends to work, or at least this has been my experience over 7 years, is that usually March and April is when it rains the most. And then from about the middle of May up until September, you're pretty much guaranteed to have very little rain, no matter where you live in Portugal. And then from sort of September to December, it can vary a lot depending on the summer and the previous seasons. But I mean, to give Ali an example, I mean, I've had weekends in October at the beach with 30 degrees. So it can vary a lot. And likewise, I've played tennis on Christmas, just before Christmas, with 20 degrees. And I've done a barbecue on Christmas Day before with like 20 degrees. So you're not going to find anywhere with better consistent weather in Europe. And for rainfall, the north also has great weather, but it probably rains a bit less in the south or in central.
There you go, Ali. That's why we bring him here. Encyclopedic in his knowledge. You just mentioned Portuguese speeds. What are the general limits through villages and motorways? People do drive very fast through villages.
They do. It's meant to be 50 kilometers an hour, which is 30, I think, in miles per hour.
Indeed. And Joel's given quite an encyclopedic answer there as well. But 50 seems to be around the edges of towns, and it can go down to 20 in some zones. Pedestrian zones. Thank you for that, Joel. A Portuguese man's house is his castle, and
women's.
Yeah. The matriarch behind the patriarch. Usually below. It's usually below 120 in a village.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Right, relationship is very important, says Barbara. I'm not sure what that was relating to there. Funny that some of the new Portuguese friends are actually distant family. Oh, so an intersection there to explore, Maria. So you could call them, couldn't you, on that and say, look, come on, we can meet each other at weekends. It's official. Portugal doesn't have an autobahn, but we do like to think so. Yeah, those toll roads, they feel like autobahns, don't they?
Yeah.
That's a whole different dynamic. I wonder what that was. Was that about G&Ts or public schools or having a butler? I'm not sure.
Yeah, one of the three.
and look, Joe K proving his Polish heritage there, talking to Barbara in Polish. Stephen, glad of the comments from Joel. And Debbie Doozy is going to put the link in. There it is. That's the Portugal Living magazine.
Wow.
Read it online, folks. Haven't got time to do it today, unfortunately, Debs, but of course we will. Tomorrow, I should say, you mentioned Aveiro. We have somebody who's going to join me. I'm hoping Susan, who used to live in Aveiro, now loves Espinho. So she'll be talking about her personal experiences of the two places tomorrow on Places and Spaces episode of the Good Morning Portugal show. The Gaz Bar is open to all nations. It's the UN man cave there in Alviagra. Fantastic. What a lovely invitation. So the drawbridge is down into the man cave for men of all, and women possibly of all nationalities. Morning, running late this morning, just joining. Beautiful day in San Martino de Porto. Popping over there this lunchtime, I have to say. Come in and see us if you're down on the bay. Might pop in and say hello, Valerie, and do a little selfie with you. Socially distanced, obviously. Most non-alcoholic bears. Oh, non-alcoholic bears this morning just taste like they had a burned stick in them throughout the brewing process. Another poor review of the non-alcoholic beverages.
He's a hard man to please, is Gary, right?
None of that. Yeah, none of that in the man cave, I'm suspecting. Carl, I'm putting the new British Embassy documentation regarding fiscal representation in Brexit on the forum. Yes, Thomas, thank you so much for that. Talking of the British Embassy, very quickly, I need to tell you that we've had a message from Marta, Consular Policy Officer at the British Embassy of Lisbon. Like to inform you that we'll be holding one-to-one sessions on healthcare in Portugal. This is for the Brits, obviously, with our dedicated healthcare team. The first session will take place today, actually. There will be others. And I'm going to put a link for you in the comments if you want to take advantage of this. It happens between 2 and 3:30 today. 10-minute sessions just to tell you what you can get access to here in Portugal and the news on the entitlement to reciprocal healthcare through the S1 and EHIC, GHIC systems. For the purposes of this session, they say we will not be able to assist with issues related to provision of care and services provided by the Portuguese authorities and COVID-19 vaccine rollout in Portugal. So it's more general than that. But if that suddenly pricked your ears up about that, I'll put the link in for you to book a 10-minute appointment with the British Embassy there. I think it's fair to say Brits only on that. But who knows? You could try. Barbara, thanks. Thumbs up to Joe K there. Fried some Lancers. I think it's got some autocorrect problems. So probably tried some Lancers rather than fried it. No wonder it tasted bad if you fried it, Gary. But not keen there. And thank you so much, Thomas. Let's go back to that comment. So yeah, that's it. Expatsportugal.com in the community. Non-EU folk fiscal representation. Fabulous. Thank you. Of course, yes. The Brits
that's the spirit of community, isn't it? From Thomas.
And yeah, it's poignant to see that the Brits, non-EU folk. However, judging by Simon's experience,
you had to get that one in there, didn't you?
Simon, 2 weeks D7 with Gilda, a Brit doing the D7, did it in 2 weeks, Michael. So that's good, isn't it?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Not being frozen out. In my opinion, the best beer is from the Czech Republic. Kozel Cerny. In your beer drinking days, did you try that one, Michael?
I'm trying to remember. I think I used to drink Star Pramen, but I think Prague's in the Czech Republic, isn't it? I used to drink Star Pramen in London quite a lot. So yeah, I was a big fan of Czech beer.
I think the Czechs know how to brew. I got trapped in a bank in Penacova last Friday. Ooh. Oh, brilliant. The staff were laughing for some time before they helped me out. I couldn't read. This is a classic.
Oh, it's classic, isn't it?
Isn't it just? Yeah. So when you see Puxe, P-U-X-E on a door,
it's pull.
It's pull. And what's the, sorry, what is push?
Is it, oh God.
I've seen it so many times in front of me, yes.
Does it begin with a T? Does it begin with a T?
I thought it was another P word, but somebody will help us out there. Thomas, I suspect. Learn the language and don't be a clown like me. Yes, you can always get away with that line, Circus School Paul. Yes, was it you who said the other day I said I remembered it and said it to my kids sat at lunch the other day. What do clowns smell like? They smell funny, of course. Thank you very much. Dad joke.
Empure is push. It's with an E. Empure is push.
That's right, an E word. Empure. Yeah. So yeah, don't be pushing on the Puja. As us Brits say, I give up. I give up, he says. And yes, as I suspected, Thomas in there with the Empure. Thank you very much for that, Thomas. Michael, oh, yes, one thing we should talk about.
We can't go without announcing this.
Yeah, And what does Gary give up about though? But he's given up on a non-alcoholic beer search, perhaps?
No, I think because we were saying what the word for push is, and he said, "I give up."
He's been stuck. He's been stuck in many a bank himself, possibly. So what's this about then on the screen right now?
There we go. So basically, every Friday at 9 p.m. Oh, hello.
Sorry, I was just thinking. You said "there we go," and I started singing "here we go." Kind of goes.
Yeah. So every Friday at 9 p.m. from this Friday until the 11th of July, we're going to be covering the Euros. So we're going to be doing all sorts of coverage, but we're going to give it like a flavor. So we're not going to be talking about the same things that are being discussed, in mainstream media. And obviously, not just going to be talking about England. We'll talk about other countries' chances at the Euros, and it will be with my good friend Richard Barnett and yourself and the wonderful community at the Man Cave. So please feel free to join us for that. Looking forward to it.
And I suspect as well, it's gonna feel like a bit like you did last night. Being in a banqueting hall of a hotel, seeing people you haven't seen for a while. To have a big football tournament is going to, for those who love football, obviously, or have any interest in it at all. It's going to be great, isn't it, to see a tournament happening in front of our eyes.
I mean, the last one because this was meant to happen last year, but 2016 was incredible because Portugal won it. So to be in Portugal for that, I mean, that was a once in a lifetime experience because Portugal is a mad football country. It is the #1 sport. So even if you're not a fan of football from your home country, it is worth getting involved a little bit in Portugal because just everyone is so football crazy. You will find it a really nice way to connect with locals and support your country if they're playing in the Euros. I think it's going to be a really good tournament. So yeah, looking forward to debating that with you guys on Friday.
And who do you think is going to win?
Wow, that's a good question. Do you know what I genuinely think England have a very good chance. We have a very good squad, but the French are very, very strong this year again as well. So I mean, I would have said England anyway because we're playing the semi-final and the final is at Wembley. So home advantage is always a good thing. But given that this year there's not going to be as many people in the stadium, then I don't know how much of an advantage that will be. But well, we'll have to find out on Friday what we think, right? That's going to be
absolutely. Join us for that if footy is your thing, and steer well clear if it's not. Other types of content are available, and it has to be said, we do cover pretty much every part of life here on the Good Morning Portugal and in the Expats Portugal forum. And if you think we don't, put it to me, and I'll put that right, and we'll have a chat about it. Great to have you, Michael. Enjoy the rest of your day in Madrid.
Thank you, Carl, as always, and thank you everyone for watching and for your questions. It's always a pleasure, and I'll see some of you on Friday and see the rest of you next month, hopefully.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye for now, everybody. Ciao, ciao. Beijinhos, abrazos. Bye for now.